achieved.
Rumor has it that the UFC's flyweight division has, well, it's potentially on its way out. We do have a couple of flyweight fights on this card, but we are hearing rumblings that Henry Cejudo, the new champion, will take on TJ Dillashaw in a unification bout, and the 125-pound division will be nullified going forward. I hope that's not the case. Obviously, with them unloading Demetrius Johnson, that certainly doesn't bode well for the division, but maybe upon further look, deeper dive, it might be a good thing. You know, he was a dominant champion that maybe people stop tuning in and caring about these guys. They're incredibly talented. Yes, they're not the big smashing heavyweights, but these guys bring a lot to the table. And I'm hoping that if they opt to go forward with the division, they give Jussier Formigui the next title shot against Cejudo. They had a split decision fight not that long ago. Maybe Benavidez gets his opportunity to fight for the title again if he gets through Ray Borg. And they go from there. Put them on like, you know, the televised events. Give them some exposure and see what happens. I think it would just be a bad direction for the UFC to take, just shutting a division down and moving on. Especially for a lot of the talented fighters that I just don't think they can make it work at bantamweight simply because of the size factor. But again, we'll see how it goes. On the other side of that trade, obviously seeing Ben Askren come over, the rumor is he will be locking up with Robbie Lawler in his first UFC bout. Very exciting. I don't think he's that far away from... again, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. You know, I've also heard Darren Till's name thrown around, but I think Lawler is going to be the fight. You know, we could see Askren get a couple of bouts in the division before anything else substantial comes along. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 139 event from the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado, taking place on November 10th. I'll be giving you all my predictions for the 6 main card fights. And all of my preliminary picks, as per usual, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, I am coming off a very strong showing at UFC 230. Overall, I went 8-3. My big bankroll bundle and my big reward bundle won again. I think that's 4 shows in a row. Another solid night. My number 1 value bet was Ronaldo Souza Jacare coming through. My number 2, Jordan Rinaldi, also picking up a big win. The only significant misstep I had in my top plays was I had Daniel Cormier to win by TKO, and he ultimately got the submission victory, so that set me back a little bit. But it was a good night overall. I'm still gunning for 300 career wins, or 300 wins, calendar wins in just a calendar year. The closest I've ever come was 299, which took place back in 2014. Last year I finished with 283. 2016 I had 290. Right now at 235 with, I believe there's 8 events to go, so I have to average, I think, just over 8 correct predictions per event. So we'll see how we can do. So, you know, that's a personal goal of mine. And also, if you are looking for a new place to bet, or a place to bet for the first time ever, check out melbet.org. There's a link in the description below. They offer a wide variety of betting opportunities, both for mixed martial arts and for other sports in general. You can check them out. They offer some decent, also a nice variety of ways to withdraw and deposit your money. So please check out melbet.org. Again, there's a description in the link below. If you're on my website, click on melbet.org, the graphic, and it should take you over to their main site. For my bet packs, if you are looking at picking them up, they are just $15 for a full event breakdown, both fantasy and betting, or you can subscribe in the bet shop for the rest of the year and save yourself about $30. On that note, we've got 6 main card predictions. Let's get to the first one. The first fight of the night takes place in the UFC's lightweight division as the Lone Wolf, Michael Trizano, 8-0, undefeated, takes on fellow undefeated fighter Luis Violent Bob Ross Pena with a current record of 5 wins and no losses. Now, these two have a bit of history, or at least were supposed to have some history, but didn't quite get there. Back on the Ultimate Fighter 27, these two fighters were expected to compete in the semifinals. Trizano showed up. Pena was unable to compete because of an injury. Trizano won the replacement bout, went on to win the tournament. As I said, Pena won his quarterfinal bout, but was removed, and now he gets his opportunity to show maybe he would have been the guy in line to win the tournament. As I said, Trizano went on to beat Joe Giannetti by split decision, remain undefeated in the tournament finals. Pena got a submission victory over Richie Smullen on the same event, also to maintain that undefeated record. Physically, Pena 6'3", he's 4 inches taller than Trizano. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage. and he's the younger fighter by 2 years. Now, looking at Trizano first, he has 7 fights overall compared to just 3 for Pena. And it's worth noting when you compare what they look with who they fought in their not too distant past. Trizano's last 3 pre-UFC fights, his opponents were combined 12-8. For Pena, he only had 2 fights outside of the UFC prior to coming to the organization. His 2 opponents were combined 2-7, so not quite the quality for Pena when you look at who he's fought. But again, he's just starting out his career. Trizano a little further along. Looking at Pena first, he comes from a striking background. He throws a lot of kicks, attacking the body, going low. He throws a nice switch kick to the head. He throws front kicks both to the body and face, and he's a southpaw, which opens up some of those back leg power kicks to the midsection and head, which can be very dangerous. With his punching, he's got some nice straight punches. He can jab while he's backing up, which makes him very effective when he's moving out of range. And again, I love the way he just slips back out of range and throws counters. He'll also throw elbows at distance, step in. Because of his length, he's able to deploy that type of offense. On the inside, look for him to throw hard knees to the body in the clinch. He will work some body punches away, and he just keeps attacking. When he fought Martinez in the Ultimate Fighter early on, he was getting cracked with some shots and backing up. I didn't like the way he was backing straight up, but again, he felt fairly confident in his ability to reset and away from the initial barrage. Ultimately, this guy's willing to put himself in danger to drag his opponent into that position as well. It's almost Tony Ferguson-like. He has this type of approach where he's like, I'm going to hit you, you're going to hit me, and eventually you're going to fade and I'm not going to fade. And he keeps attacking, engaging, and it seems so far it's worked out for him, but he's getting those step up in competition. Now, we did see some issues with his takedown defense. Smullen took him down early in that fight. He did attack off his back and eventually worked a top position and got back up. He has shown a good wizard in attempts to defend takedowns. When he defeated Smullen, he dropped him. Smullen was known as the submission guy, but he dropped Smullen, grabbed his neck, and submitted him. He has been training with alongside DC at AKA, so that's worth noting. He's probably getting some nice preparation there as well. Now, for Trizano, he's a much more traditional fighter. Likes to stand at range, land strikes, circle away from damage. He's got some decent pop in his hands, especially with his left jab, which will pop out there. And he's got some very good low kicks. Overall, he's got some good movement. We saw that against Gunther in a fight where Gunther was coming out charging hard, and we saw Trizano rolling out, resetting, and landing strikes. Now, he was dropped by a straight right from Thailand Clark on the Ultimate Fighter, so he can be hurt. And at times, he seems to have some reach issues when he's looking to engage, and takes an extra step in before attacking, which if his opponent's able to pick up on that can be a pretty significant tell. When he fought Giannetti in the finals, Giannetti's a taller, more lengthy fighter, and he seemed to have issues reaching him at times. He was getting hit with kicks and not connecting on his own. Ultimately, he will look for takedowns. When he fought Clark, he picked up a takedown along the cage, just drove him into the cage, eventually worked, put him down, got to a good position, finished him. Landed some good strikes from his opponent's guard there after posturing up. So that's something he could look to do here. On the flip side, he was taken down by Gunther, got stuck on his back for a little bit. He likes to attack the choke and a takedown, so if Pena does shoot, he'll need to be very wary of that. Ultimately, I like that. It's good to see Trizano as a patient and calculated fighter, but he's actually going to put him at a deficit here. He's going to struggle with the pressure of Pena. He's going to be too willing to sit back and see what happens. Look for Pena to take the ground given to him and keep pushing forward and not stop attacking. Once Trizano starts to engage, Pena's going to slip back out of range, land his jab while moving backwards, and he's also going to land those kicks to keep him at distance. And that's a major concern for Trizano, just his inability to reach his opponent without putting himself in further the danger zone. If Trizano looks for takedowns, Pena has that decent takedown defense. He can be very aggressive off his back if they hit there. And ultimately, I think Pena's just going to land more damage, beat him up, do more volume, more significant strikes. And my prediction is Luis Pena to defeat Michael Trizano by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the women's strawweight division as Maycee, the future Barber, undefeated at 4-0, takes on 8-2 Hannah Cifers. Both fighters are debuting strawweights, looking to get off to a good start. No champ in the division as of right now, so fighters know if they put a good performance together, they can string a couple together, they could find themselves in line for a title shot. Now, it's worth noting that Barber is from Colorado, where they're fighting. She's undefeated. She fought her first 4 pro fights under the LFA banner before going to the Tuesday Night Contender Series, so she's had some good experience and a good run so far, despite being incredibly young. For Cifers, she fought twice in Titan, and her only career loss came via submission to Julian Robertson in 2017, so she's no slouch either when it comes to experience. Physically, Barber 4 inches taller, she'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, and she is the younger fighter by 6 years, and you heard me correctly before, Maycee Barber is just 20 years old. Now, it's worth noting Cifers in one of her recent bouts weighed in at about 109, 110 pounds, so she's not exactly a big fighter, but that could help her coming in just a couple of weeks' notice, replacing the previous opponent that was going to face Barber. Now, first, always good to consider the level of competition before the UFC when looking at new fighters. Again, for Cifers, her last 3 opponents were combined 15-20. For Barber, her last 3 opponents were combined 5-5. So again, probably favoring Cifers as far as experience is concerned. Maybe a wash when it comes to quality. On their records, Barber 1 win by decision, 4 finishes split evenly between knockouts and submissions. She has 2 first-round finishes. For Cifers, 5 wins by knockout, 4 in the first round. She has 3 decision victories, and she has a loss each by submission and decision. Now, Barber, she actually went into her contenders bout as an incredibly big dog and really put it to her opponent. She fought incredibly well, was very scrappy, but still fought very mature for a young fighter. Utilized the clinch very effectively with her head pressure, controlling her opponent on the cage, and just chipping away with him with knees and elbows. She landed a nice trip from the position, and once she got on top, it was big elbows, and eventually was able to finish her opponent. She will work some kicks, especially the head kick. She'll also throw some side and low kicks as well, and that's something that she might not see as much because Cifers comes into this bout. She comes from a Muay Thai background. Now, she can fight in close range, but she's also capable of fighting at distance. She's a methodical striker. She'll look for openings. She will open up and brawl if pushed. Probably her best weapons are her body strikes. She does a good job of working the body over. She'll land some decent short punches on the inside. She can hurt her opponents with flurries. Again, like I said, those hard kicks can also be very damaging. One of her most recent opponents, she just cracked him to the body, and you could see the body start to shut down and the brain start to catch up, and the fight was over shortly thereafter. She can go for takedowns. We've seen her operate takedowns from the clinch position, but again, she's going to want to remain vertical in this fight. Now, when you look how this plays out, Cifers is coming in on very short notice. She's debuting, and she's fighting in enemy territory. She's arguably the more technical fighter, but Barber's aggression is going to be incredibly concerning for her to deal with. That's going to be the major issue here. Look for Barber to dominate her on the wall using her size and pressure to just brawl the more technical fighter and push and keep engaging and attack, and maybe make that short camp an issue. I think Barber's going to secure some solid clinch position control, some solid top position time, and my prediction is Maycee Barber to defeat Hannah Cifers by decision. Fight number 3 in the main card takes place in the UFC's flyweight division, one we previously spoke about, as former title challenger number 3 ranked Joseph Benavidez, 25-5-0, takes on the 4th ranked and also former title challenger, the Taz Mexican Devil, Ray Borg, with a record of 11 wins and 3 losses. Now, I said the state of the flyweight division's in flux with Demetrius Johnson gone. Again, the rumor we're getting that unification bout, so a lot of things swirling with this division. These guys don't care. They realize a win here could position themselves good going. It's going to, it's a big thing going forward. Now, looking at Borg first, he's been out of action for 13 months. He's coming off a title fight loss. He had won 5 of 6, including beating Jussier Formiga and Louis Smoka. His lone loss in that stretch was a loss to Justin Scoggins. For Benavidez, he's coming off his first loss to opponent other than Demetrius Johnson and Dominic Cruz, the split decision loss against Sergio Pettis. Coming into that matchup, he had been out for a year and a half, so that's worth noting. Physically, both guys 5'4", 2-inch reach advantage for Benavidez. Borg is the younger fighter by 9 years. Now, when you look at Ray Borg, he's in a very peculiar spot. He lost his last fight, not lost in the cage, but the last fight got canceled because of the McGregor bus incident. And then on top of that, and this is incredibly unfortunate, he hasn't been able to compete due to his son's health situation. It's not been good. They've been, doing what they can, but it's just one of those things where it's more important than fighting. And he's had to take time away, and that's understandable. But he's back now, but that's definitely been a distraction. Ultimately, though, it's hard not to consider that as a significant distraction from his training and preparation. Additionally, Borg is dealing with a layoff coming to this fight. That's a major concern. When you look at Joseph Benavidez, a lot of people, said maybe he's past it after his last performance, even though I thought he could have got the nod in that fight. But when you consider he was coming off a long layoff in that matchup, and on top of that, he had just made the move from Team Alpha Male, the gym he'd been training at for years. He had just left them 2 months prior to that fight. In this matchup, he should be in a better place now. And, ultimately, he's also thinking he already owns a victory over the current champion. Does this reinvigorate him in his quest to get a title shot? I think it absolutely could. And for Borg, he's dealing with that post-title fight letdown scenario. We just saw that with Volkan Ozdemir. Again, when you lose that title fight, the next fight out, fighters tend to come out flat. And the reason being is it's hard to focus, hard to get back up, knowing you have so far to go after getting there and then coming up short. Now, as far as what's happening in the cage, we've talked a lot about the other intangibles. Borg has an incredibly good grappling game. He took Demetrius Johnson down 3 times. He dominated Smoke on the mat. He has 6 wins by submission, a lot by rear naked choke, very good back take. But Benavidez is no slouch. 9 wins by sub. He's never been submitted himself. Zach Makovsky took him down on 4 occasions. Tim Elliott took him down 3 times, but he does have a 66% takedown defense. He won both of those fights. And when you look at his Henry Cejudo fight, Cejudo, the Olympic level wrestler, Cejudo tried 7 takedowns over 5 rounds and scored 1 of them. So that tells you how tough Benavidez is to take down. Further with the statistics, the other big stat that jumps off the page to me is the fact that Ray Borg lands just 1.31 significant strikes per minute, but Benavidez 3.44. Borg landed just 36 strikes against Formiga in a fight that he won by decision, and it was spent entirely on the feet, and that was, he really focused on striking. That was his best striking performance to date. For Benavidez, when you look at what he's put up in recent fights, 59, 69, 66, 48, 93, and 94 over his last 6 fights. So all of his fights in recent memory, even his worst performance, he's landed more strikes than Borg overall, and against good competition. Now, Benavidez did get rocked in each of his last 2 fights, and Borg, but at the same time, Ray Borg really hasn't demonstrated the type of power to threaten him with that. And I think Benavidez is a handful to deal with on the mat. He's very difficult in that position. He can defend subs. He can get up if taken down. And I think that gives him a lot of confidence in his ability to push forward and engage on the feet. And for Ray Borg to win this fight, he's going to need to break some sizable trends. He has to be able to be the first to submit Joseph Benavidez, or take him down and keep him down, or outwork him on the feet, which is something the stat suggests he's not capable of doing, or at least he doesn't traditionally do. He also is going to have to deal with shaking off some ring rust, the post-title fight letdown scenario, and overcome those distractions at home that we mentioned. For Benavidez, he's in a much better spot than the last time we saw him. A lot of people would consider him past it. I'm not ready to write him off just yet. Considering he is, he's more settled with his current camp, and he's not coming off such a long layoff. Those are good things. I think ultimately in this fight, Joseph Benavidez defends the takedowns and is just the busier, more aggressive striker. And my prediction is Joseph Benavidez to defeat Ray Borg by decision. Returning to the ladies, we're in the UFC's women's bantamweight division as the number 4 ranked and former title challenger Raquel "Rocky" Pennington, 9 wins and 7 losses, takes on the 5th ranked Germaine de Randamie, also known as the Iron Lady, fighting out of the Netherlands with a current record of 7-3. Now, both girls are coming off title fights, but vastly different title fights. For Germaine de Randamie, she won the first ever UFC featherweight championship, defeating Holly Holm at UFC 208, but ultimately gave it up when she refused to fight Cyborg, who she claimed the PED factor, and saying, I'm not going to fight her. For Pennington, she earned a title shot against Amanda Nunes in 135 pounds. She fought at UFC 224. She went into the 5th round and lost midway through the 5th round via TKO. That fight cost me so much money, as I had Nunes to win by decision. That was hard to swallow. But either way, vastly different scenarios. De Randamie, 2 inches taller, and she'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. Pennington is the younger fighter by 4 years. Now for Germaine, she's been out of action for almost 20 months. She pulled out of a co-main event in her home country, and when you figure that in with her title fight situation and her antics during the fight against Holly Holm, she's not in the UFC's good books right now, so she needs a good performance here. Now for Pennington, just like we talked about with Ray Borg, post-title fight letdown scenario. She had won 4 in a row, including a big victory over Miesha Tate, which I correctly predicted, ultimately getting outclassed by Amanda Nunes. Now, in that fight, she held her own at times, but never really was in the fight where she was looking like she had a chance to win it. She took a massive beating overall, wanted to quit before the 5th round. They sent her back out there, and she got finished. And, maybe it was a good thing they sent her back out there. I don't know. People want to argue and debate about that. Either way, a fight's a fight. She's always been a tough girl, and my big question is, how does it impact her going forward? Taking that beating, getting finished like that, that could be a major issue. And when you're facing somebody like, Germaine de Randamie, she's an elite level kickboxer. I believe her record was undefeated, and she never lost as a kickboxer. That's incredibly impressive. She beat Holly Holm in a striking fight. It was controversial, but she still won. She has legit stopping power. She knows how to finish. She can counter strike. She won't open up until that moment is right to put her opponent away, and she's dangerous on the feet. Pennington's incredibly scrappy. She took Holly Holm to a split decision, but she doesn't offer big power, and she doesn't offer big volume either, and those are concerning. When she fought Nunes landed the better strikes. Betchko Hayda had her moments against Pennington, despite the fact that Pennington won a split decision. It was close. You look at Pennington's record, just a single knockout victory, which came back in her pro debut. She's 5-4 in decisions. So it tells us she doesn't have a lot of knockout power, and she has a difficulty distancing herself in close fights. When she fought Nunes, she tried to counter-strike her back up along the cage. She was taking power shots, looked very hesitant. At times, it just wasn't effective for her. So that raises the question, does Pennington look to take the Randamie down? I think that would be an approach she should at least entertain. You know, she took down Nunes once, took down Tate once. Going back to her fight with Elizabeth Phillips, she took her down 3 times. That was one of her better wrestling performances. Took down Jessica Andrade on 2 occasions before submitting her. And she does have 3 submission wins overall, including Andrade and Ashley Evans-Smith. So there definitely is a road to victory there. But on the flip side, Germaine Randamie, 86% takedown defense. The last time we really saw her taken down was when she fought Amanda Nunes way back in the day. And Nunes took her down and finished her on the mat, just ground and pound. Randamie looked completely lost over her back, could not get up. In her last 2 fights, Holly Holm attempted 9 takedowns. Randamie shut them all down. Ellen Louise took her down, or tried to take her down on 5 different occasions, unsuccessful across the board. These girls aren't amazing wrestlers. I would put Pennington somewhere between Nunes and Holm as far as her wrestling skills are concerned. Now, when I looked at what Pennington has done in the past when she's looking to engage with takedowns, she gets a lot of her takedowns from the clinch position, and that's not someplace you want to mess with a good, strong kickboxer. And Germaine Randamie is very physically strong, very good in the clinch. You know, Pennington has a clear path to victory here, but she needs to commit 100% to her wrestling and her grappling skills. You know, fighters have had success landing leg kicks against her. I think, you know, because she's primarily a boxer, I think Germaine Randamie is going to have success landing leg kicks. Randamie, she needs to get off to a strong start, be the more diverse striker, and threaten and damage Pennington every time she pushes forward. I think Raquel's just going to come out flat here. She's going to get picked apart in the feet, and her willingness to trade shots is going to cost her here. And my prediction is Germaine Randamie to defeat Raquel Pennington by TKO. The co-main event of the evening will take place in the UFC's welterweight division and feature the 12th ranked Donald Cowboy Cerrone, former UFC lightweight title challenger, 33-11-0 with 1 no contest, taking on the always entertaining and controversial Mike Platinum Perry with a current record of 12 wins and 3 losses. Now, we already know there's some bad blood existing between these 2 fighters because of the Jackson Winklejohn camp. A lot of fighters seem to be leaving that camp at this point in time, including Donald Cerrone. Mike Perry still training out of there, and obviously, you know, he's a mouthpiece to start with. And then we have Donald Cerrone not willing, you know, not really backing down, certainly having saying his piece as well. Now, as far as the records are concerned, Cerrone is coming off a loss to Leon Edwards. He is just 1-4 in his last 5 fights, with his only win coming over another fighter, Yancy Medeiros, who formerly competed at lightweight and moving up to welterweight. For Mike Perry, he's coming off a win over Felder by split decision. He had lost back-to-back bouts, and it was that was actually his first non-stoppage victory in the UFC. Physically, Cerrone 3 inches taller, he'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's the older fighter by 8 years. Now, it's worth noting Donald Cerrone is fighting at home in Colorado. The last time he fought at home, he came in on a 4-fight winning streak and got brutally knocked out by Jorge Masvidal. So you have to wonder, is there some distraction there? Is there concern or pressure that he doesn't deal with when fighting in front of his home crowd? Now, Cerrone, he's a very technical fighter. He has that very long, dangerous Muay Thai style. On the flip side, you've got, Cerrone also is an exceptionally good grappler with, you know, good submission game as well. For Mike Perry, he's a very capable boxer. He's got good power. He's willing to brawl and throw down, and he also showed us some of his wrestling skills in his last fight. Now, Perry's had issues with those more technical strikers, especially guys who are willing to throw leg kicks. We saw Santiago Ponzinibbio take it to him, and Max Griffin upset him. For Cerrone, he's had issues with guys who are aggressive and throw with good power. He tends to be a bit of a slow starter, which, you know, for guys who come out and get right in his face early on, they seem to have a lot of success. You know, when Perry fought Paul Felder, he was stalking him, moving forward. He was absorbing the kicks and punches that Felder was throwing, and he kept landing his own. Now, his output did drop off, but he had already done a lot of damage and got ahead on the scorecards. He had busted Felder open, which probably further added to what the damage appeared to be as the fight progressed. We did see him go to his wrestling a couple of occasions, which is something he could look to do here, but he has to be very careful of that aggressive guard of Donald Cerrone. Now, Cerrone, he's been incredibly active over the last number of years, but this is the longest it's taken him to get to 3 fights in a calendar year since he only fought twice back in 2012. Usually he fights 4 times in a year, and so this time it's just 3rd fight, taking a little bit of time off. And as I said, he's struggled with those next level welterweight opponents. His power, the power they offer, and just his inability to hurt them at times has seemed to be a major issue, especially when you fight a guy like Robbie Lawler. Now, I've also noticed, and just going back and watching some of the film in his more recent outs, he just looks less into fights. He looks less focused. He doesn't seem to have that hunger in his eyes. You know, is he just there to pick up a paycheck? Is he burnt out? That's a possibility. You know, his attitude of not caring about who his opponent is and just wanting to have fun and go out there and fight, maybe that's taken over, and that's not going to carry well at that next level, especially when he's facing some bigger opponents. Now, Cerrone, no doubt, is the more diversified striker, but Perry's aggression and power are going to cause him some major issues. It's also worth noting that Perry is training at Jackson Wink. They are going to have a heck of a lot of in-depth insight into what Donald Cerrone does well and how to beat him, and I think that's going to, you know, pay dividends for Perry. Cerrone being a slow starter, it's going to open the gate for Perry to really come out early and pressure and attack him and get in his face. I think Perry's going to land those big shots, and he's going to keep Cerrone backing up until he eventually finishes him, and my prediction is Mike Perry to defeat Donald Cowboy Cerrone by TKO. Moving now to the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's featherweight division's former title challenger and 10th ranked Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, 14-4-0, takes on the 15th ranked Ultimate Fighter Latin America winner Yair Rodriguez with a current record of 11 wins and 2 losses. Now, this fight was originally scheduled to transpire between the Korean Zombie and Frankie Edgar. Edgar had to pull out with an injury, and Yair Rodriguez, who pulled out of his own fight in recent times, stepping in on 3 weeks' notice to face the Zombie. Now, he's not fought in just under 18 months. We had that issue with Magomed Sharapov where he pulled out of the bout, was cut, then he was reinstated and took the fight, then pulled out with injury. For the Korean Zombie, he's not fought in 21 months overall. Now, he is coming off a victory over Dennis Bermudez. He has won 4 of his last 5, but he has just 1 fight in the last 5 years, and that fight lasted less than 3 minutes. For Rodriguez, he went 6-0 to start his UFC run until the knockout TKO loss to Frankie Edgar. Is his first professional loss since a 2012 defeat, which is his only other pro loss. Physically, Rodriguez 4 inches taller. Zombie will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and Yair is the younger fighter by 5 years. Now, Rodriguez, as we know, is a dynamic striker, but Edgar took him down, wrestled him, busted him up on the mat, and potentially laid the blueprint for defeating a fighter of this caliber. He took some unreal damage in the first round. His eye was swollen shut. He seemed broken as a fighter, and he was taken down again, and ultimately was finished between rounds when the fight was stopped. Rodriguez, he will attack off his back. He attacked off his back in that fight, but it's not the best approach because it left him vulnerable, especially when he didn't hit that submission and he got finished. We really, at times we have seen the Korean Zombie go for takedowns, but they are primarily in the clinch, and it's not his primary method of operation. When Frankie was having success against Rodriguez taking him down, we've seen other guys try and take Yair down. Frankie had success because he was punching and shooting. He was being unpredictable. He was, keeping that constant flow of offense, changing things up, but constantly pushing forward and attacking. That's not the Korean Zombie style. Rodriguez, he was under constant pressure in that fight from Frankie with offense. He was trying to fire back, but couldn't keep him off him. Chan Sung Jung, he's going to push forward, he's going to pressure, but he's not always attacking. He kind of plods forward and sits right in his opponent's face, and he will attack, but again, it's not that constant flow, and he's very hittable. He's willing to absorb damage and just keep doing the same thing over and over again, trying to break you. Statistically, he gets hit almost as much as he hits his opponents. When he fought Dennis Bermudez, he was rocked in that matchup. He recovered and landed that massive knockout uppercut to put him down. Ultimately, the Korean Zombie is going to want to draw Yair Rodriguez into a firefight here, and that's a mistake. Yair is the superior striker from a technical standpoint. He offers a more diversified striking attack as well. I would give the Korean Zombie the edge in power. Durability is a question mark. I would say Yair is the more durable fighter, but hey, we'll see. Look for the Korean Zombie to just keep pushing forward, but Rodriguez is just land strikes over and over and over again, especially that kicking offense from distance. And KZ, he's just going to keep moving forward and engaging and taking damage, and that's not a good thing. The Korean Zombie is eventually going to look for takedowns, but he just doesn't have the same level of wrestling that Edgar does, and Rodriguez will avoid them. Yair is just going to keep doing damage, and the Korean Zombie becomes more and more hittable as he moves forward and tries to create that firefight. It's just not going to work out for him here, and eventually we see one put him down, and my prediction is Yair Rodriguez defeat Chan Sung Jung by TKO. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 139. As per usual, all of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Please check them out. The bet packs are coming off a fantastic showing. That's 4 huge shows in a row, 5 of the last 6, and I believe 7 of the last 9, if I'm correct. Just $15 for a full betting breakdown of the card. I also look at fantasy picks, so please consider buying them in the bet shop, melbet.org. If you're looking for a place to bet or a place to switch it up from one of your normal betting sites, please check out melbet.org. There is a link in the description below. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. And, you can email me through my website if you have any questions or comments, or if you have issues logging into the bet pack, which I know some people do. But ultimately, I will do my best to help you out in all scenarios. Thank you very much for tuning in. We have an incredibly busy November and December coming up to round out 2018. And again, we are in pursuit of that 300 calendar wins. We'll see if we can get there. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Hi.